thanks so much for tuning in to Coffee, Candidates, and Conversation. And we are putting this little series together for voters to provide an opportunity for voters to learn about candidates and to get some one-on-one time. We know that COVID-19 has kind of made the living room like our most frequented place. And I think we learn more in front of the television and our computers and cell phones these days about what's happening in the world than we are from what we're getting to experience because we've had to stay inside so long. And so we want to bring some information to you in a way that could be safe and in a way that would be very, very special for you and give you some alone time with some candidates. And so with us today, we have State Representative London Lamar. She currently represents us at our state legislature in our House of Representatives for District 91. And so she's my state representative, and we are so glad to have such a wonderful, hardworking Democrat and Black woman up on Capitol Hill fighting for us.
Thank you.
So
thank you
for coming. Yeah.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And you look nice, and so I know you probably had a busy Sunday so far, so we're going to try to make this as fun as possible. And so for those who don't know, Miss London Lamar is seeking re-election, and so she's running unopposed in this race, and there's not a Republican. Well, she's running unopposed in the primary, and there's not a Republican challenger. And so today will be really special. We'll get an opportunity to learn what our soon to be re-elected state representative has in store for us, or has in mind for us in the coming months. Okay, so but before we get into all of the serious stuff, of course, this is Coffee, Candidates, and Conversation, and I've got my SEDP coffee cup. You got your coffee mug, okay?
Yes, I keep like little cute, fashionable coffee mugs.
Yeah, we got a little caffeine to get us going. Okay, so Ms. Lamar, tell us something about you that we can't learn from a simple Google or from working on your campaign or from reading your campaign literature.
Yes. So, hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Harris, for inviting me on this show to talk about my re-election. But I understand people want to get to know London. Like, who is London? The young legislator from Memphis. But really, I'm goofy. Like, I really just like to hang out and chill. I'm really goofy, silly, outside of having to be all serious all the time. I love to travel. Traveling is like my favorite thing. There's no better feeling than getting on a plane and getting ready for takeoff. Like, it's just like, I just love that feeling. So I love to travel. I played volleyball in high school. So I was a middle blocker. If most people don't know, I'm very tall. I'm about 5'10". I also love to go to amusement parks and ride roller coasters and rides. I feel like it's just so fun, and it just reminds me of being a kid again. So I just kind of, really enjoy things like that. So that's just a little bit about me. My favorite color is black. I love black. I think it's the most beautiful color, but that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm an athlete of sorts myself, and so I had an opportunity to do a little running in college, cross country and track, and so.
So that means you have endurance.
Yeah, I was a long distance guy, so.
You need it in this line of work, trust me.
Indeed. And so, and I know, and transitioning from that, so what's like the biggest or most important issue to you? And I know that as an elected official, we often forget that you are also a voter with feelings and passions that connect sometimes on different issues that might not be the forefront issues. But what to you as London Lamar, the voter, is the most important?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I just wanted to preface before I even answer that question that I think that is important as elected officials that we bring the lived experiences of ourselves and our constituents to the work in order to inform what our agenda is going to be and how we plan on advocating and move the issues that our communities experiencing forward. Because if you have never walked the day in the people that you serve shoes, how can you be the best advocate for them in a position of leadership? And so what I want to remind people is I am the people that I represent. And the thing things that I've gone through in my lifetime are the same issues that my community is suffering from. But I just want to do something about it. So I just wanted to preface to becoming a trusted asset to my community because I understand we walk in the same shoes. And so because of that, I was a girl born in a single parent household, raised by my mother, strong mother. I've had a job since I was 16 years old. I've seen women in my family, myself, experience reproductive issues. I've gone to public school all my life. And so those experiences is why I run on the issues of strong schools, healthy families, and safe communities, because those are what we need in order for District 91 to thrive. When we have strong schools and we have healthy families, we have healthy communities. And when our communities are safe, people really feel like they can belong and feel wanted and needed. And so from that is how I inform and create my legislative agenda. When you look at the things that I was able to pass this past year, I passed 4 bills on the House floor unanimously, no votes against them. They fell under these same issues that I just discussed. And so it is because my colleagues understand that I know more than many others about these issues that I'm out here advocating for. And so they respect me for that. And we are able to work together to get these issues passed. And that is what truly a type of legislator I want to be. In my second term, I'm going to continue to fight with these issues, plus more issues that's impact the community, but do that in a way where I'm building sustainable relationships with my colleagues so that we can pass impactful and effective legislation for my community.
Okay. You kind of touched on an issue that's one that I've sort of asked a lot of the candidates who are looking to run for a state representative role. And it relates to being effective. And I believe what's the breakdown is 76 Republican House members and what 27
Democrats.
27 Democratic.
Well, 26 now since the party kicked John DeBerry off the ballot, so he lost the seat.
Yeah, how were you able to be effective, and what strategies did you use to get your those 4 bills passed, especially with unanimous considerations coming in as a freshman?
Yeah, coming in, I had 4 strikes against me walking into the legislature. I'm Black, I'm female, I'm a Democrat, and I'm young. So I was always on a negative spectrum of what effective and what typically is the quote unquote image of a legislator that comes into Tennessee. And so what I've had to do is allow people to get to know me. And I had to, because I knew I was young, I had to come in sharper and tighter than anybody else. I was never a time I could come to committee and not know what I'm talking about. There'd be never a chance I could be able to come to committee and not do the research or have to go and ask my colleagues for their support. So I made sure I worked twice as hard as everybody else to be half as effective. And that first year I wasn't able to pass bills the first year because they didn't know me. They didn't know what I was about. They didn't understand why I was pushing these issues. It was about, they cared more about how do you feel. And so what I decided to do was continue to work. And over the summer, I held summer sessions around the issues that I was talking about and the bills that I wanted to pass. I brought constituents up to meet with these legislators. I hosted meetings with different department heads, and I worked throughout the whole summer. So when it's time for session, that's why I had so many of my bills passed so early, is because I was ready, locked in, and ready to go. And I already knew which bills I'd be able to pass and didn't pass because of the relationships that I built with my colleagues in order to get legislation done. I recognize that I am in a super minority. So yes, I do build sustainable relationships with my Republican colleagues who do have the power and will vote on my legislation. If they don't agree with my legislation, it's not going to pass, because as a Democratic Party, we got to work together in order to elect more Democrats to these seats that Republicans hold so that we can have the power and pass more bills that's going to help our community.
Okay. And so if you could give, I guess let's kind of give those who might not know, your favorite bill that you got passed. Tell us a little bit about it so that those who may be unaware could know more.
I got 2 I want to talk about. One, because one is already public law now, and the other one it got stuck in the Senate because of COVID. So the first bill that I was able to pass that is public law is my Hope Scholarship bill for pregnant students. So if you become pregnant and you are off to school or you receive the Hope Scholarship, you can delay the start of school because it's now considered an official medical excuse or medical leave of absence so that you won't lose your scholarship. So if I'm a senior in high school and I, make a mistake on prom night and end up wanting to keep my baby, I can because I can delay school a whole year and keep my whole scholarship money. I feel like in a state that's pushing and saying they're pro-life, we got to be beyond pro-life than whether a woman decides to have an abortion or not. We need to be pro-life in all aspects of ensuring that if she does decide to keep this child, then she has the ability to create a sustainable life for herself so she can take care of the children she's forced to have. And so if they can't get their college degree because they end up being mothers, then we're honestly contradicting what we're calling ourselves as pro-life. Also, another bill that I was able to pass on the House floor was my human trafficking bill. That was inspired by Miss Toya Brown. This bill allowed human trafficking victims who committed an act of crime as a result of their victim status ability to claim self-defense in the courtroom through testimony. And so this is important because prior to, if we can get this bill passed, and it passed the House, so it shouldn't have no problem when we bring it back next year. It just got stuck in the Senate. That it will finally give human trafficking victims an opportunity to claim self-defense. If you're a human trafficking victim and you're doing a job because your pimp make you go sleep with somebody and you're afraid for your life and you see they got a weapon and you decide to defend yourself, current law doesn't allow you to claim self-defense. You're automatically going to get charged with a crime. So right now, we want to give these victims an opportunity not to go to jail because of something that's beyond their will, because they're being coerced into this life. And so I think that's important that we take that step to protect both men and women who are victims of human trafficking.
That's huge. And that's one of the ones that had unanimous support.
Yes, all my bills passed unanimously, and I want to thank all my colleagues for that, Democrat, Republican, everybody. But because in those moments we become one, and most times we do actually agree on most bills. Yeah, I was really honored that day. I that was one of those days when I went home and I just kind of had to put my hand on my chest, and I truly felt like I passed the actual law. Like I passed a law that's going to help my people. Like, when people talk about what are you doing in order to make your country better, like, or you politics are always on social media and all this other stuff, I'm thinking to myself, no, not exactly. Like, I broke my back to get those bills passed and to build the relationships with my colleagues in order to get sustainable legislation and bills done. This is not you think it's a nice bill, you show up at committee, it passes. No, it requires work. It requires building relationships. It requires time. It requires money. It requires relationships departments. It requires lobbyists getting on boards. It requires them just even liking you. And so while I thrive in that work of getting those things done, those things aren't easy, but I promise you, I wouldn't take it back for the world. And I'm so excited to be District 91's representative and say that's something I was able to do for women or victims or people in our community. And when people ask, when you think about why you ran, and I say strong schools, healthy families, and safe communities, I can say, well, those two bills are building strong schools and healthy families by being able to still receive your education and raise your family in a way that's best for you. And when we talk about human trafficking, we're talking about safe communities where in our neighborhoods, girls are getting sold here and there and there. In the neighborhoods we live in right now, we know nothing about. And so we're giving them more protection in the law so they won't be trapped in a prison system because somebody's selling them for bread. That is why I'm a legislator. And that is when people ask me, what is my goal or why are you here? That is why I'm there.
Well, I think that's dope. And I really applaud you for taking that stand and really paving a pathway that clearly goes down the middle of the line, for a person who's trying to break free from being stuck in that type of situation. And in talking about that, you kind of stepped on the reproductive justice area, that topic. And, the heartbeat bill for Tennessee, it is one of the most restrictive in the country. And, particularly because, it does not allow for an abortion for a person, well, after a child's registered in a heartbeat, but then the mother, if it was the child was conceived as a product of rape or rape incest. And
Right.
that's just the tip of really the iceberg. What is going on with that? Why was there no unanimous understanding on that topic? And let's talk about that.
So yeah, that bill wasn't supposed to pass. Like it was understood that we was gonna focus on COVID related legislation coming back into the second session. We were gonna, gun bills, heartbeat bills, we were gonna kind of let those die. They snuck that in behind our backs at the last minute. So we really caught off guard when it hit the House floor. So for me, and again, I'm the only woman of childbearing age in the state house. I'm the only I'm the only young woman who can still have kids. And so for me, I feel personally attacked when I hear these heartbeat bills because it's like you're looking at me in my face and
Right.
telling me I'm not smart or strong or articulate enough to decide what the hell I want to do with my own body. Period. So how are you, my colleague? You say you respect me when that vote comes up and you take away my ability to choose what I want to do with my body. You're taking my rights away. And I don't understand. Well, let me back up. I understand what this whole heartbeat abortion fight is really about. I don't know if I can really say it on this podcast, but it's a fight for power. Controlling a woman's reproductive ability controls your ability to control socioeconomics. It controls your ability for power. It controls your ability to determine families, classes of people, because a woman giving birth brings new life into the world. It is what creates this new system of people who can grow to replenish the economy, who are going to work in future jobs. So you control a woman's ability to have children, you control everything. And so when you take that right away from us and tell us we don't have the ability to make that decision for ourselves, you take our ability to impact the world and our families and our bodies. You also take away the ability for women to make smart decisions within their families and their medical professionals. There are a lot of women out here who can't have kids, right? But so you're going to make them, and because we don't make exceptions for certain things in this bill, you could potentially allow a woman to die. You can also make a woman carry the sins of her rapist. To make a woman bear a child that was conceived through rape is just inhumane, in my opinion. That right there, I can't fathom. It's just ridiculous. But at the end of the day, Mike, I say at this point, a lot of times this abortion argument for me is a way for them to control power, also a way to use politics to get votes. They know for these rural areas, for those legislators who are going back to tough primaries, hearing them pass an abortion bill for them to go back home and say, I passed an abortion bill, I believe, blah, 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 blah. They use the law to do a lot of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, like I said on the House floor, when the bill came up on the floor, it's unconstitutional. So for a party that claims to be fiscally responsible, you're being pretty fiscally irresponsible by pushing a bill it's going to get struck down in the court. And as soon as the governor signed the law, it was struck down within minutes by the judge. So let's be clear. It's a losing battle. Roe v. Wade is the law of the land. At this point, I think it's just laughable to continue to see these heartbeat bills because they're failing in every single courtroom they come in. And so it's just one of those things. It's a dying argument. As we continue to usher in a new generation of leadership, there is more and more support for a women's ability to choose. And being pro-choice isn't anti-life. Because I'm pro-choice and I'm pro giving women the right to choose whether they want to have a family doesn't mean I devalue the life of infants or women who decide to have their children. It is just a personal decision that is not our ability to control as government officials. That is a decision between a family, a woman, and her doctor. That's it.
Yeah, now, I think the irony there is that they want to, Republicans often package concerns about caring for life as it relates to a woman's right to choose whether she should, keep a child or not, before the child becomes developed to a point, so they care about it there. But when we look at poverty, there's not the same
Right.
concern. It's life involved. There's not the same concern when we look at healthcare, and there's life
And that's
involved.
what I tell them. You're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. There's a huge difference. It's like you're pro wanting me to push the baby out, but once that child is here, are you really pro for them having a great life? Are you pro good public education, not ravaged by vouchers and public money taken out of our public schools? Are you really pro-life by not giving everybody expanded healthcare access? You're denying people the ability to have healthcare? So are you really pro-life when no one can avoid being sick? Are you really pro-life? We're constantly putting innocent Black men in jail for crimes that are really shouldn't be crimes. Like, let's really break down this term pro-life and really look at how you define pro-life based on the way you vote in this system that you are a gatekeeper of, that's just not thriving for the community that I represent. You ain't
Right.
pro-life. You ain't pro my life. You pro your life, but you ain't pro mine. And that's the problem.
And so that kind of takes us right into this next little segue. And I want to just put it up on the bottom of the screen so that we can look at it. Expansion of Medicare and Medicaid. We said no to $2.5 billion. And so talk about that and why have our legislators not been able to come together to make this happen in a way that's meaningful and impactful for people all across the state of Tennessee? Because, and I'm going to share some statistics with you, Tennessee ranks as the 7th worst state in the nation for hypertension and heart disease, the 5th worst for diabetes, and 3rd worst for stroke. And together, these chronic illnesses account for 1/3 of all of the deaths in Tennessee, and they cost the state an estimated $5 billion annually. And then, there's an undercurrent issue or sub issue as well, especially as it relates to the diabetes and hypertension and heart disease, and even stroke. People who live in poor communities, and particularly black people, are heavily impacted by these types of health issues. What is going on? What are the arguments that are being presented on the floor for why we shouldn't expand Medicare and Medicaid? And let's talk about that. Give us some insight on that.
So I will say it's become more of a political issue than anything. I do want to say that most of my colleagues are opposed to this. Many of them, I won't say all, but many of them understand that actually expanding healthcare would be better, but they're tied into the Trump rhetoric. They're tied into the party, having to stick with the party, or they're beholden to insurance companies who are lobbying because insurance companies don't like this, because they're going to lose money when you offer expanded healthcare access. When people don't have to buy healthcare for them, they can take a public option, so they lose money. So those are some of the oppositions, and those who are some of my business-minded folks who are in the beds of working with insurance companies are also going to put companies before public health or public options, because of their philosophy that they think that public insurance companies can give better service than a public option. That is
do you think the
do I
narrative
think that?
changes? Do you think the narrative changes with at the next discussion, since we have COVID-19 and this pandemic is kind of exposing the weaknesses in our healthcare system?
Absolutely. I saw a report that over 100,000 people have lost healthcare insurance because of COVID. Right now, hospitals, people don't have the money to care for themselves. Some people aren't going to get treatment because they don't have healthcare insurance. So you see sick people not going to get care, who are getting other people sick because they don't have the coverage. I think the argument for expanding healthcare is it's no better time with this COVID right now. What I'm hoping is that, one, we can get through this election, and some of those beholden to the Trump rhetoric that, this is a hoax and this healthcare is not this bad, are able to be taken out of office, so we can get some more folks with common sense values who understand the impact of this healthcare system. But I also want to say that expanding healthcare and Medicaid will actually save the state money. but we're losing money trying to be holding to this philosophy that this public option is worse. It is really only because Obama came up with the idea. It's really the sole reason why the Republicans won't do this. Every piece of data shows this will save the state money, it will save people. The money's there from the federal government, but because of Trump and this whole Obama hating Obama and the systematic issues and the symbolic racial issues we have going on in this state, we can't pass common sense policies such as expanding Medicare and Medicaid, something a Republican governor before the one we had supported. And many of my colleagues do support, but they won't go against the party. What I do want to say is that I hope that, after January, we can come back with some legislation that is going to further put pressure on our House and Senate to expand healthcare access. We have another wave of this disease coming. Our hospital and ICU rooms are already full. We cannot afford to sustain a system where people cannot get healthcare coverage, because we are going to see a drastic number of people die. Now, if you're okay with people dying, then don't expand healthcare. But if you want to give people the opportunity to live, that is their constitutional right as American citizens, then I think we need to be responsible and go ahead and expand healthcare access with the money that we have allocated to us from the federal government.
Yeah, and just one correction. I believe that amount that I posted was 2.5 billion, but it was actually 1.4, right?
Absolutely.
1.4 billion.
Something it's in the billions, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not a lot. Like, healthcare is very expensive. That's one of our most expensive expenditures outside of education and other, issues that always have to be taken care of in our budget. But what I do want to say is that I think that we got to continue the advocacy, and it's most important that as you're doing these coffees with conversation with legislators, please hold them accountable to ensuring that they support expanding healthcare access. And typically, don't get me wrong, that's not an issue of support that we have with most Democrats, right? But I do want to say is, as a party, for those candidates that you do support who are running in districts that have Republican opposition and Republican opposition that doesn't agree with healthcare access, you have an obligation to, and for all of those watching this show, you have an obligation to get out there and support these candidates who are running against folks who don't support expanding healthcare access, or giving more public education, more funding, or making sure we do real sustainable criminal justice reform. If you're out there protesting for Black Lives Matter, I suggest you get in neighborhoods and canvass for candidates who are going to vote in favor of Black people. And so these are not just social media topics. These are not just cute hashtags about protect healthcare, public schools, Black Lives Matter. No, it requires work. This whole vehicle, this whole movement of change is not like social media. It's not as quick as a tweet. You got to get out there and work, and especially you're going to be a member of this Democratic Party that you are chair of. And if you want us legislators to be more engaged in the party, I'm going to have to see members of the party get out there and work to help us legislators fight the egregious policies pushed by our Republican counterparts. And that is my call to action around, this whole healthcare talk don't mean nothing if we can't elect candidates who are going to advocate in favor of healthcare.
Well, now let me ask this question, and give you some insight on this. How would you rate Tennessee's response to COVID-19 on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being, 1 being, the worst or really bad, and 10 being an excellent, top-notch response? So how would you rate Tennessee's response?
I give it a 5.
To 5. You give it a 5. And what do you think? What's the reason for the 5, and what do you think we could have done better?
I think that our response to the coronavirus initially was very lax. I think the comments from many of our colleagues on the floor, like, this is a hoax, this is not real. And it's evident in the way we've allocated resources to people, the things that they've advocated for, the fact that they won't mandate masks. What? Like, we just need to get people to wear masks. The fact that we won't tell the truth about what these coronavirus numbers really look like, and won't get an open and eye view of what these hospital rooms are really looking like. Our response to unemployment, people are still unemployed. People are still suffering, the fact that we have expelled healthcare access with the COVID money, that people are losing healthcare access and our hospital rooms are increasing, the fact that our coronavirus numbers are steady going up, but our governor is talking about he's definitely not shutting the economy down. While I understand we need to work and we got to keep things going, I do think that the state could have took a more responsible approach to the coronavirus response than we have. I don't think the urgency was in the messaging around how serious this is. I do think that we haven't put things in place that are going to keep people safe, especially when I was advocating to push for universal absentee voting. The fact my colleagues thought that, this is, you won't catch the coronavirus by going to vote is absolutely ridiculous. And so I think that Tennessee has done a poor job. Right now, we have some of the highest coronavirus cases in the state. As you can see, like we can't even go to Illinois because we're on the, do not accept list or this travel quarantine policy they have going on because of the number of cases in Tennessee. People not taking it seriously. Folks not implementing safety measures. So I think we could have done a much better job. Like we could have, New York's response to the coronavirus was done perfectly. Having a strong mayor like Keisha Lance Bottom, like Atlanta has, I think would drastically change how we respond to coronavirus. Having a strong governor like the one in California, we would have a drastic difference in how we respond to the coronavirus. So I think leadership played an important part in our ability to respond to this pandemic, but we have so much further to go, and I don't think we had the leadership that we should have had.
And so, interesting dynamic. So on the one hand, we have coronavirus, and on the other hand, we have the nationally televised or nationally shared video documenting the killing of George Floyd. And so now we have the Black Lives Matter movement sort of kicking in again, and then the world essentially, countries across the world and cities across the country, people are protesting about this. How do you reconcile the two, and what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? We did have one situation where we've had our mayor, he spoke out in concern, saying that people protesting were exposing folks to coronavirus, and of course, we issued a statement in regards to that. And I think it was, perhaps more risky, if not equally risky, for police officers to be trying to, to arrest folks who are peaceably protesting.
Well, I will say is, while I think this pandemic is one of the most egregious pandemics we've experienced in modern times, this is something that's going to go down in history. And I have my own thoughts about what I think this pandemic means. But what I do know, and I do know that African Americans are being affected at a higher rate and dying at a higher rate than anybody else. But what I do know is that after seeing that video that officer knee in George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds was damn for sure worth going out there protesting, even at the risk of getting COVID-19, because I will not die by the hands of the police. That's what I do. I can't help the spread of a virus if I get in contact, but I can stop a police officer from killing me. And so regardless of what you think I'm exposing my life to, the marching for Black men, Black women, Black lives, so that we can live beyond the time of a pandemic. The fight for our life and police accountability is not limited to the fact that it's going on during a pandemic. This is our lived in our lives beyond the couple of months or the few years we're going to have to suffer to get through this virus. That it was worth it. Now do I believe we got to go beyond this protest? Yes. Like we got to bring the heat and let folks like my Republican colleagues know, like, enough is enough. We've been peacefully asking for you to change policies. We get in there, host meetings, task force, people ask, people vote. You act like you don't hear us. And like Dave Chappelle said on his special, if you don't hear people peacefully, we go to civil disobedience. Yep. Rat-a-tat-tat. That's what folks ready to do. And it is what it is. And I can't blame them. All I ask is that when you are protesting, at the same time, let me know which policies you protesting for, or which particular policies you felt most impact you or it has been most impactful when it comes to criminal justice reform. And us Democrats, we're going to get it together and come up with a package and get some laws changed. Even at the end of session, when COVID was going on and everybody was protesting, we proposed the 8 can't wait amendments to pass to reduce police brutality at no cost, and they were shut down on the House floor. But these are the same legislators running out of there early because they're scared or a protest is happening. Like, the fear is here. We just, as a community, so this is to all my activists and everybody, I feel like everybody has their role in this movement. And I think George Floyd definitely reignited the fight for civil rights in our generation. But we all have a role to play in this overall strategy and agenda to get Black lives more appreciated in the criminal justice system. You know, you need legislators like myself to pass legislation and the laws that, you know, dictate what's fair and not fair in the courtroom. I need activists to be ready to tear it down when it's time, so that the ones who don't want to listen to us will have to listen, because they either go face me or they go face them. Which one you want to do? You're either gonna have these folks in your yard protesting, or you're gonna pass the policy that's gonna make sure that I have an equal chance at life, just like you do. Pick your poison, because this whole system, how it's working right now, we ain't thriving in it. So don't expect Black people like us to keep being a part and keep being okay with a system that we are dying in. It's just not happening. And then most important, we need our lawyers. We need people like you to take it to the courtroom, to make sure that our lives matter when we stand in front of a judge. And I need people to vote. I need y'all to take y'all butts to the polls to get Trump out and get every other person who is not advocating for Black lives out of office. Period. So we all, whether if it's an elected official, as a human or as a citizen, as an activist, we all have a role in this system and in this strategy, in order to make sure that we can change the trajectory of Black lives and ensure that we are valued equally under the law and that we have a right to live just like everybody else. And so for me, you know, back to your question, like, I don't care if they want to risk getting COVID, you know, protesting for Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and all the other Black people killed at the hands of police. Let them march, because I was out there with them with my mask on. But at the same time, I also take it to the state house and sit in my office and figure out what legislation can I help or push in order to ensure they ain't got to march no more during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And I always think of it, you know, what's worse when the end result is death? Dying
Exactly.
from COVID-19,
Exactly.
dying in the hands of police officers. You know, death is death. You definitely can't quash fighting for a liberty and fighting, you know, for a civil right because of a new disease that has come up that people can catch, because folks have been standing up and fighting for this for decades, and it still.
And I was just about to say, it's really symbolic in a way if you think about it. You know, when our parents were protesting, our grandparents, for me, were protesting for civil rights and things like that. They took the risk of getting killed by KKK or a lynch mob. They knew protesting could be their death. Every time since slaves were free, but we entered Jim Crow, we've been protesting for our lives at the expense of death, decade after decade after decade. So to me, marching and protesting during the pandemic is no different than the what my grandparents put at risk trying to fight for their lives 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So it's the same thing. History is repeating itself. Again, the fight for justice is about the fight to live. And if I don't fight, I'm going to die. I'm either going to die at the hands of a pandemic, or I'm going to die at the hands of police. Right. And I'd be damned if I'm going to die at the hands of police. It's not happening.
Here's the grand irony. You know, don't protest because you get coronavirus, but we're not going to shut down things because we need to keep this money flowing.
Exactly.
And with that, I want to take you to one more topic, which is poverty. And I'm going to read this to you. So in Tennessee, research shows that 1/3 of the children in Shelby County and half of the children in Memphis currently live in poverty. And that's a situation that's kind of unchanged for like the last 50 years. Now, what do you see as a place where there's like the biggest opportunity, or where's the low-hanging fruit to try and make some progress quickly in terms of addressing the issue of poverty in Memphis and Shelby County, from where you're sitting in Nashville?
I truly think that in order to really address poverty, and especially with the children, it's like a twofold. We have to bring jobs. We have to do, there are jobs here, but but they're like factory jobs. These are like 9, 10, 12, 13, $14 jobs that are out there, and people need them and they should take them. But that's not a job that's going to get you out of poverty. Like making 13, 14, $15 an hour makes sure that you have a good in poverty life. That's not a working middle class income. It's just not. And so we're not even training the people we have in Memphis at a higher rate to take the 12, 13, $14 jobs just to make ends meet. And then we're not even bringing jobs or training people for jobs that require higher salaries. Like we don't have a bunch of corporations here that can hire all of these young professionals with the wealth of knowledge or give people something to strive for. A lot of times you're graduating high school in Memphis and the best job you hear of is being, working at a top level MLG&W or working for the county or the city. And not that those aren't good jobs, but at the same time, it's like, where are our venture capitalists? Where are our CEOs? Where are our, Black business owners? Like, where are they? They're not here, and we don't have enough jobs here that's going to create a life where people can truly be sustainable, and not just sustainable like being able to pay their basic bills, but also have enough money to save and invest and start other residual forms of income. Like everybody in our communities living paycheck to paycheck, even myself, I get it. Like it's hard out here. So we do got to be one as a state. We can't start passing laws that are going to attract world-class businesses to the city. For example, they tried to pass like another anti-LGBTQ bill. And like there are companies saying we cannot move to Tennessee because they have too much hateful legislation. So the Amazon, the big CEOs of the world, the Googles of the world, and things like that, where they attract a more diverse and progressive workforce, aren't able to come to places like this because their workforce won't be able to thrive and feel welcome. So that's just an example of how state has an impact on our ability to track businesses that can bring money, that can hire these people in our neighborhood. And I'm just trying to break down a system in a way so people are listening to understand like what that actually looks like. On the flip side, the children, what we can do now for families is bring more money for wraparound services. And what I mean is literally like be able to provide 3 meals at school for the kids who are poor. Like make sure they have a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner. We can make sure like we can bring doctors and dentists into the school. Like sometimes these kids acting up because they're literally sick. Like they don't have health care. They teeth are hurt. The wisdom teeth are coming in and it's killing them, but they don't have the money to go to a dentist or oral surgeon or things like that. Or the fact that like bring some job training opportunities after school for the parents, after school tutoring. I remember when I went to school, the community centers used to have after school camps, like so the kids can go somewhere and not be in the streets after school until mom gets off or till the street lights come home, and so they can go community center home and it's safe. They won't get in trouble. Like just being able to, yes, it sounds like it's a parent's job to do all of this. And don't get me wrong, it starts in the home, and it is. But because of the impact of the system that's had on Black people, I feel the system has an obligation to step in and overly care for our community until we're able to bounce back and get to a place where it's not always Black communities the most poor, where we're having working class and middle class and high class Black communities like we used to back in the day.
Well, let me throw this out there, and then we'll go into the my big SWOT question as we wrap up. What about what hasn't happened over the last decade? And that is not a penny has been added to the minimum wage allocation for the state of Tennessee since in the last decade.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
Arkansas has
increased their minimum wage and have another one already scheduled to follow it. What's going on with that? And,
We
and
have
why?
not kept up with inflation. You're right. The cost of living is the minimum wage cost is not adequate with the cost of living. I think that people have been definitely cheated out of their wages. Companies have made billions from scapegoating the responsibility it has in their employees to pay them adequate pay for their job and or sending the jobs overseas so they can pay other folks pennies and not have to pay Americans what they're owed. So we've done wrong when it comes to wages. I'm a big advocate for increasing the minimum wage. Again,
With
our
our
minimum
legislature,
wages.
if
Huh,
the issue comes before our legislature, and you had to predict how the vote would come out, could we get $1? Could we get a $2 increase? Would any dollar
nope.
increase make it through the House?
Nope, not right now, not in this current landscape, because they believe that it's a right to work state. They believe that if you don't like the pay, don't take the job. An employer has a right to pay you what they feel like is necessary or what benefits their business. So there's a philosophy issue about it's going on in the legislature about who's more powerful when it comes to the dollar. And it's not black folks. And it's not poor folks either. It's giving companies and businesses the ability to me cheat people out of the money so they can make the most profit as possible. And that's the problem. And again, a lot of and I don't even understand, because a lot of these are manufacturing businesses that are still thriving, who could probably afford to pay a up-to-date minimum wage, but they don't. They've also locked down the support within unions, and always fighting with unions, are always fighting against, trying to put in laws that are making it easier for employees to cheat out employers to cheat out employees and making it a less safe work environment. So I don't know what we can do besides get more people in office who support a higher minimum wage and more accountability when it comes to the workplace. So that's a constant fight that we have. And, it definitely contributes to the whole poverty issue we're talking about. Because if people aren't getting paid minimum wages, then they can't live. So we have it's a whole system we have to break down. Okay, it's not gonna happen overnight, but if we stay focused and stay firm, we can get it done in 1 or 2 generations.
Okay, well let's do the full out medical record summary of our state, the condition of our state report. Let's do a SWOT analysis. I would like to
Okay.
know, and I know it's really difficult to just talk about one district, without considering all the districts in Shelby County. So let's just talk about what you see as it relates to, for the legislators who serve Shelby County and the city of Memphis. What do you see as the greatest strength from your posture as a legislator for what's happening? Like or at least what's the best thing that's going on? What do you see our greatest weakness in terms of moving us forward, our biggest opportunity? And then what do you see as the biggest threat to all the districts in Shelby County and the city of Memphis reaching the next level for us? What is the biggest threat to that? So give us that SWOT analysis.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So what are our strengths? Most of your legislators from Shelby County are Democrats, the overwhelming majority of them. And so a lot of times when it comes to policies and these issues that we were just talking about on this podcast, we are always on the same page. We're always a solid block when it comes to advocating for Memphis, advocating for some of the issues such as poverty, education, and things like that. Not all of them, but most of your legislators here are always on the side of the people in the city of Memphis. And so the city of Memphis has a strong, loyal voice in Nashville, hands down, and especially because so many of our colleagues have such negative thoughts about Memphis, which I don't understand. But, we're always there ready to go to bat for the city. One of the weaknesses I see is that I guess we always having to fight for Memphis because of Memphis is an African American city. It's overwhelmingly Democratic. It was one of the most powerful cities in the state, and then there was a lot of disdain from other counties and legislators. So this had an impact on how we talk about Memphis, how when it comes to criminal justice reform or education reform or all of these other issues, Memphis is always a guinea pig. It's this, oh, we can try this on Memphis, or we can do this, try this on Memphis, as if our people are experiments. I can't stand it. And I think that's one of the greatest weaknesses is the fact that we are always having to defend Memphis because Memphis is always under attack. One of the greatest opportunities you have right now is to snatch 2 Republican seats in our own county. You have Representative Jim Coley, who is a Republican, and he was actually a really great guy. I really like him. But it's an open seat now. He's retiring. So we have, depending on who makes it out the primary in August, y'all need to put all your feet forward to steal this seat so that we can have another Democrat in office to help us push some of these issues. We also have a Mark White seat, which Jerry Green is running in. That's an opportunity to steal a Democratic seat. I don't know what the outcome is going to be with John DeBerry seat against. I don't know who's going to make it out the primary. And then whoever makes it out the primary is going to have to line up with him as an independent. And his status as an independent in the general election. So I don't know what that looks going to look like. But right now, we could potentially lose a seat as a Democrat. So we got to be careful about this. So there are 3 seats, that Democrats need to be focused on. I'm focusing on Jim Coley's and Mark White's seat. Those are the 2 seats that I feel like are most important to us. I also think one of our greatest threats is the fact they're about to gerrymander. And because people are not taking the census and are not, reporting that they're going to draw our districts based off of that. And if we're not taking a census and we're not getting counted, you are potentially redrawing the districts that we represent into a way where we could potentially lose Democratic representation. And if we're not taking a census, you are putting our party at risk of losing seats, actual seats in the legislature. So I need the party to also make sure all citizens are taking the census because they redraw the lines this year based on that data. We gotta, if y'all want me to stay, y'all don't want them to combine my district with somebody else or cut it out where there's another Republican and you smush 2 Democrats districts together or something to that nature. Y'all gotta take the census. It is what it is. It is what it is. Just take it. It's not stealing your information. The government is not tracking you. I don't even think you got to put your name. Well, if you put your name, but you don't have to put too much deep information in there. So it's just, that's our greatest threat. And I'm really worried about it.
And so let me go ahead and put this up. Let's come to our census and take the census.
I love this.
Yeah. So
I'm going to start using it, Mike.
Say it one more time.
Let's come to our census and take the census. Yes, I love it. Yeah. There needs to be, you got to put that on the internet for sure.
Absolutely. We definitely will. And so, we have to wrap it up. And I want to say thank you so much, Representative London Lamar, for joining us and breaking bread and giving us insight to what's happening on the floor and sharing with us some of your ideas and all of and a little more information about all the hard work that you've been doing. So we really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to great things from you. And you've always been a progressive and forward-moving leader in our community, and we look forward to more of the same. And so, thank you so much for joining us. Or do you have any last word that you want to say real fast to the people?
I just want to say I want to thank everyone for their continuous support. I'm really honored to continue to represent you as your state representative for District 91. I want to continue to advocate for strong schools, healthy families, and safe communities. But I do want to encourage the members of the Shelby County Democratic Party to keep their best foot forward in this fight for justice for all people, making sure our social, political, economic issues are really taken care of, that we come together, we elect people who are going to fight for these issues, and we change the trajectory of the leadership that represents Shelby County and ultimately at the state of Tennessee. So thank y'all for the support, and I'm here to support.
All righty. And lastly, everybody, thanks for joining us for this segment of Coffee, Candidates, and Conversation. And we'll end with this. Let's come to our census.
And take the census.
Take the census. All right. So we're gonna run with that.
Yes.
We will see you next time. Thank you so much for being here with us.